So yeah, like I was saying, fuck that job. Um, Because the truth is, you don't owe your job anything. They don't owe you anything. Quite frankly, I don't really think they care about you. Um, and I don't even think it's about whether or not they care about you. I think it's more so like, I don't know. It depends on how deep you guys want me to go, or how deep I want to go. But essentially, like, to put it short, whether you believe me or not, there is an actual system at play by which they want us to work as much as possible for as little as possible, for as much in return as possible, and give us as much to consume as possible, so that way we are always consuming, we're always working, and it's this, endless cycle. I'm not that old, but I have noticed patterns that unfortunately lead me to believe that, or let me rephrase that. Before I go there, let me just say that I have noticed that life usually works in patterns, right? Humans tend to like patterns. Even if there isn't quite a pattern, we will do our damnedest to find one, to spot one. And then when we come across situations where there is no pattern, where it's random, then once again, like I said, we still, sometimes we just say it's random, but very rarely do we want to admit that things are random. So why is it any different than the situation that we find ourselves in? Being depressed, stressed, not having time for our family, not having time for ourselves. Because why do you think I'm here, bro? We should be doing these types of things regardless. Like, if it's in your best interest, I urge all of you, no matter where you live, to get out into your biome and sit in it and enjoy, because for all we know, we only get one of these. I tend to flip-flop and believe in reincarnation. If you're one of those people that firmly believe in it or not, for all we know right now in our living life, we only get one. So I think it's best. If we enjoy it. And that takes me back to my original point. Fuck that job, because once again, like I said, it's a system at play that by which they want us to work. They don't really care about us living life, because their goal is when I say they, a lot of people get upset because they don't really quite understand the they. The they is not the politicians. It's the families, the group of people that come from old America. Oh, this guy's box just got taken into the yo. Somebody's box. I don't know who it is. But anyway, it's not whoever was the first families of America, whoever are these secret societies, these families who are very wealthy and whose kids and themselves and the people before them and their families have been a part of all the secret societies that we know of, such as, like the Ivy League fraternities, which once again, like I said, is not necessarily the politicians. The politicians just so happen to come from these secret societies and were allowed in and were then introduced into that sort of lifestyle and that sort of like into the society. You know, that's why they're secret societies. What I'm saying right now may sound to you like a whole bunch of like conspiracy theories. I wouldn't necessarily call it a conspiracy. Is it a theory? Only in the fact that they would never openly and publicly themselves come out and say this. And well, it's in the name, secret societies. So the thing is that they're not really so secret because we know of them, we know their names, and they flaunt their allegiance to them very openly. The only thing that's secret about them is, that's kind of secret about them, is what they do and why they do it. But I think the why is obviously power, right? It's obviously power. Power obviously for them is the main thing. And when you look at everything that we find ourselves under, if you look at all the not the scenarios, but the situations and the hardships that as everyday hardworking people of whatever society you're in, because if you live in a Western society, I'm pretty sure you work and you work hard. And not just a Western society, but a capitalistic society. Let me rephrase that. A society that is based in gaining as much capital, and that is was worried about GDP and stuff like that, which is damn near the whole world. Damn near, I say, not all, but damn near the whole world. This is something you have a problem with, like low wages, working a lot of hours. You don't have time for yourself. You don't have time for expression. You don't have time, and you might ask yourself, like, a lot of us, we've been conditioned to say and to think that like money is all. Now this is, once again, I guess I can't say there's a whole another conversation because once again, it's all wrapped in it. Let me spark. Money, as we know it, is fake. Okay? And let me explain that. What I mean by that is, before the US dollar existed, before we decided to use gold, we just simply traded goods, we simply traded resources. I hate to get graphic here, but like, we even traded our selves sometimes, our siblings sometimes, our offspring sometimes. Why? Well, because it had value, and if what we were trading it for had equal value, you know, because I mean, think about it, slave trade. But in even more primitive times, we were just like, oh, like, you want my daughter, you can have her, but for like, you know, your entire farm or something like that. Like, I don't think it was that drastic. I don't know how people like value daughters back then. But that's a different conversation. The point of me bringing that up is the fact that it was trade-based, it was value-based, and I'm making the argument that it very much still is. And how we know it is that the US dollar bill is exactly that. It's just that it's a bill. It represents value in something. So, because we pay it to consume things or services, and those services have a certain value that we pay for. That's kind of how consuming works. That's how that thing works. So because we know how that works, we have to understand that now that we understand who they are, they don't really want us to understand because they want to keep the fake power which is in the USD, the fake power which is in the pursuit in material goods, which the material goods represents the status. And why status is so important, because status makes us feel seen. Status makes us guarantees that we hold stake in whatever community we want to be received in. The reason why that's particularly dangerous is because with the new advent of social media, the community is now widened to the entire world. So we thirst for that status of the entire world instead of just what it used to be, just maybe like a few square miles, or not a square mile, like a few hundred square miles, 2,000 square miles, like maybe a city, a village, or something like that. Like, you just want to be known. But now it's about being known across the fucking globe, like on the internet, like millions of people. Like, we're saddened by 100 views on something, 1,000 views on something. That used to be populations. And I know that sounds like stupid to say because that was like so long ago. But like, connection is, life is perspective, and so is connection. You feel me? So is connection. Like, we may feel like we don't have anything or have anyone, but it's because the truth is we kind of don't, and it's because they take us away from each other by what I was mentioning earlier in the video, that everything that I've been talking about so far. And that's like I said, that's why all these things kind of go hand in hand. That's why these things kind of go together, and that's why these conversations, when at the highest level, seem like a yap sesh. And I think this is kind of done on purpose. Life is actually simple. It's not something it used to be before the ad. Like, okay, and I'm not gonna say in every religious text, because I'm gonna be quite honest, I haven't even fully read the Bible, but I do study people, and I listen to people, and I study the Bible enough to know that in it likes to discuss a lot about, or in it not a lot, but in it does discuss like this idea of like, well, how did man get more complex over time? And usually how that story goes is just like, well, I believe it's like Adam and Eve, before they were quite simple people. They didn't know of shame, they ate the apple, now they knew of shame, and out of that's where kingdoms and all that like started, because they started, the difference. I'm sorry, I'm not too religious. I try to use the religious, but like, the religious got me to what I'm really trying to say is like, once we knew of difference, I think is once we start saying like he, they, or not he, they, but like them versus us, wealth, status, like you're peasant, slave. Once all this started to happen, the chase for that status and the ideas that we put around those statuses, if that's a word, caused us to have take on these certain identities, relationships, ways that we have relationships, ways that we view ourselves. I don't want to use that word, but different passions, different goals because of this, right? So for example, you know, the working class, the slave class, that class is usually known as like the more like, you know, family oriented, community oriented, like, you know, very hardworking, usually have high morals, like is very altruistic, and that is by nature of, well, their job. They have to stick together. They do work together a lot because, well, their jobs usually include like working, in which they work in like communities, because usually they're like cogs in a machine. You know, they're like, one is the hand, this group is the legs, and you know, and that brings me to another point that I'm gonna touch on later. But you know, because of that, they're a unit, and because of that, they usually develop these ideas of like, oh, like, you know, us versus them. And where us versus them come from is that the bosses, the managers, right? The people that are, you know, kind of like the in-betweens. Like we're talking about, like, I guess the merchants class, or the people that kind of like are the people who manage the people who work for the goods. These are the people who kind of like, their whole thing is proving to the upper class that people are running the whole thing, the CEOs, the people who are funding this whole project, that are paying the managers to manage this stuff, that they can manage and that they're useful. Because the truth of the matter is that the manager role is like the least useful and the least really that makes sense. It's just kind of there because, like, well, what do you do to these people that, you know, aren't necessarily searched? It's just a nice middle class, right? And this middle class develops this kind of like what's this kiss-assy relationship to the CEOs, but this us versus them mentality to the slaves or the working class, because it's needed in this sense of like, oh, like, you know, they're the managers, they have to keep shit tight, they have to make sure that everything's in line, at least they think, right? And that's because that's their job. And it always creates this kind of like back and forth in between the two structures. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I'm trying to say. The managerial class and the worker class, and then the CEO class up top, the people at the very, very top, the people, like I said, with the big bucks, the people who kind of like had the money to fund this whole shebang bang, who founded the whole shebang bang, probably aren't the smartest. The nobility, these are the people who are purely just obsessed with just, they're so removed from everything that they don't care about the managers, the workers. All they care about is profit and, well, the people around them. And quite frankly, their life is so plush that in their head, life, there is no struggle. They will never know what it's like to see a crop die when that was like the only harvest for the next so long, until their food supply run out, and then they press the managers and they're like, yo, managers, like, what the hell is going on? Our money is low, our crop is low, you know, our food supply is running out, what the hell is going on? And well, the managers are just the managers, they're not the ones working. So they're kind of like confused and kind of irritated at the fact that the CEO is telling them about this, because in their head, they're not really responsible for this. They're just kind of there. And in their head, they thought that kind of was their agreement. Like, you just hired me because, like, I'm not really a part of the family. I'm just, like, family kin, and you mess with me. So you just gave me this kind of role where you didn't want me to be working, but you wanted me to be working. But now you're telling me you want me to be working. So, like, the managers is always kind of, like, confused, right? But then it always falls down on the workers. And this is where it really gets weird, and this is where it really gets messed up, because the workers is the biggest in number, yet they're the deepest under control. At least on the surface. But the truth of the matter is that after so much time, or in this, once again, you see this, like just in this quick like scenario, you see that it's actually the reverse. The CEOs is actually, well, it's always been like this, but the CEOs is actually the slaves to the slaves, or to the workers, or is actually under or in subordinates to the workers. And in the way how is without the workers, and so is the managers. The managers is fucked completely. The managers have really no place in this power structure, but the strongest group is really the workers. And the reason why is because not only are they strongest in number, but they know how to do everything. If the workers just decided that we don't really care about consuming, we don't really care about what happened, we'll just take our skills and what we've been forced to learn how to do and do it for ourselves, and then not for them, then everything will be different. The tides will turn, because we have the number. They would be asked out because they don't know how to do shit. They don't know. All they know how to do is talk shit and tell other people what to do, and fucking yeah. That's about it. That's all they know how to do. And eat cake, dance. They know how to do. They know how to throw a mean party. But that's about it. And I think, the way you ask yourself, okay, well, if this is true, Kari, why do we find ourselves in a situation where that's exactly what's going on? We work for low wages. We literally, without us, nothing would be happening. Nothing would be twerking. Nothing would be like popping off. If this is the case, why don't we just do that? Why are we not doing that? Why? And it's because they have, like I said before, they have a lot of systems at play which make us want to work for them. That make us think that, like, this is a valiant thing to do. And the human mind is very malleable. You can make the human mind believe. You can manipulate the mind very easily. You can manipulate a human very easily. And, the people who actually partake in doing that, the people who actually have the knowledge of doing that and actually do it, I don't want to say, like, every single time they do it, they think in their head they're doing it for a valiant reason, and they even believe you that they're doing it for a valiant reason because you didn't consume with them and then you didn't partake with them, right? And usually how they do this is through using some already set idea. And I don't want to name any actual thing because it's gonna look different in every society, but they usually because, like, let's say this video is seen thousands of years from now and it's not religion based and it's some pseudo religion. You get what I'm trying to say? So, like, whatever society you're in, what it's gonna look like is like there's gonna be some dominating thought, some dominating religion, some dominating belief system that is going to set it up to where somebody is going to come in, or a group of people is going to come in and use that as a basis to then say shit like, oh, for example, in our world, it's like when it came down to slavery, it was like, oh, God said that you shall be slaves. And a lot of slaves regurgitated this because it was hammered into them and they didn't really know a lot. So if you birth into it and this is what you're being taught, like, what else are you gonna think? You think, oh, I'm meant to be a slave. If I'm a white person and I grow up in a household where I have people working for me my entire life, I never had to work. I've always been wealthy. As soon as I was birthed, I had fucking the cleanest clothes. I had maids all around. Like, I never had to do anything but like hunt with my dad, be rich, eat, you know, do stuff like that. Like, would I ever know a struggle? Would I ever know of what it's like to, you know, like, would I, basically the question is, would you know anything outside of that? The answer is no. You wouldn't. Why would you? Why would you partake in anything outside of that, right? And the moral of the story here is, so much of our life is dictated on what we believe, and so much of how you, to answer the question what'd you call it? A dog came and wanted to talk to me for some reason. But like, I lost my train of thought. That was so cute. But I don't know why that happened. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like, fuck that job, bro. You don't have to be working so hard. You don't have to give your life away to your job. Okay, so that takes me to like the meat and potatoes of what I want to get into. So you ask yourself a card. So you ask me like, okay, fuck my job, right? Then what? Like, I can't pay my bills anymore. I, you know, can't consume. I can't place bets anymore. I can't buy my Zara anymore. How is that a good formula for success? And my answer to that is, wait, what's that doing my hair? Okay, but so yeah, like I was saying, like, you know, you might ask me like, okay, it's like, fuck my job. Let's say I quit my job, or I don't say quit your job, but let's just say like you start taking more days off. You change your schedule around. Like, instead of working like 40 hours a week, you maybe work 35, or let's say even 30, or even 25, and you know, you ask me, so like, how do I make up for that lost money? Because at the end of the day, money is security. Money still ensures that, like, I need to pay rent, I need to eat. Once again, this is not an overnight process, and this is why community is so important. And a lot of us are alone right now, and once again, that is another aspect of what they do. How they fuck up the game. Once again, it's a lot of videos, a lot of topics to go over on how all this works. Theories of how all this works, but the main thing, and what I'm gonna regurgitate at the end of each of these videos, regardless of the topic, is this same formula, this same idea. Skills, trades, you know, being able to do things and understand the world around you, because the more you understand, the more you know what to do, the more you control aspects of it. And if you, for example, like when you buy fast food and when you buy food at the restaurant, it's usually a lot more expensive because labor, they're working it, and it's an arbitrary price that they decide to set. When you get food at the supermarket, same thing, arbitrary price that they decide to set. But if you notice, like when you cook your own food, or even when you grow your own food, the things needed to grow your own food, the things needed to cook your own food are usually a lot cheaper than the finished product. And if you just know what to do with the cheaper materials, how to put them all together and get that finished product, the money that you will be making off of just working normal hours, because mind you, I'm not saying that working is not good. You should work, right? But so for example, those 10-15 hours that you're giving yourself back that you're not giving to the corporation, you're spending on, you know, learning skills, you know, like maybe farming, growing your own food, cooking and stuff like that, to where that money is coming back to you anyway. You get me? Because if you know how to grow your own food, not only are you set for food for yourself, but then you can sell the extra food that you have left over to make a profit, right? If you know how to, let's say, fix your own car, now you never have to go to a mechanic shop again, spend $900. That's extra money in your pocket. And you can also then sell your services out to people for the fake money in return. Community helps this, because if you know multiple people who know other skills than you guys can combine this wealth, combine on top of that, and then build. Because how we know this is the formula is because this is what they did. I think I'm gonna end this video here. I think you guys get the point, and like I said, I'm gonna talk about this a lot more. This idea of just simply, the whole moral of the story is getting your own things together, getting your own. I don't like people when they say like, oh, get your shit together, oh, you should be working, you should be like, you know, about your business, blah blah blah. Let's keep that same mentality, but do it for things that actually bear fruit. Think about life, and it should be you give what you get. That is real. And I feel like in the current society, we do not get what we give. We do not get what we give, and that is by design. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys could hear me. I love you guys. More out.